Happy Friday. Welcome back.
It's great to be back, Julia, with you sharing this week's headlines, starting with Congress questioning the biggest CEOs in tech.
Biggest indeed.
What a spectacle.
Yeah, big four, right? Mark Zuckerberg, Jeff Bezos, Tim Cook, and finally Sundar Pichai. They answered questions about anti-competitive practices and allegations that they possibly leveraged their powerful platforms to harm competitors.
Yeah, and members of Congress say that these companies are becoming monopolies. Should they be broken up?
I personally think some of them could be broken up a little bit, but the question is, can they be broken up? You and I have interviewed many guests on the show about, different policymakers' stance on this. I don't think it's going to be an easy thing, even though I think some of them should break up to benefit everybody else, because I personally do not believe in monopoly, per se.
I think this question is above my pay grade, but there you have a view of the spectacle. Look at that.
Yeah.
That is a once-in-a-lifetime picture right there. A very worried Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg without sunscreen, Tim Cook. I don't understand why Apple's there, because they're not a monopoly, and then Sundar Pichai, who's the Indian fellow in the bottom left-hand corner. He's the CEO of Google, all the most powerful men in the world.
Looks different.
Yeah, no, he looks so young.
Gained a little bit of weight.
Who, Sundar?
No, Bezos.
Oh. I think Jeff Bezos is looking good and healthy. Must be that beautiful new girlfriend he has. Anyway, so we're not going to weigh in on this because we are using social media to broadcast to you today. So we're going to go into the next big issue, which is, of course...
Oh my God, are we wearing face coverings? So according to a recent survey, less than 10% of people in Scandinavian countries like Sweden, Denmark, Finland, Iceland wear masks in public.
They do not wear masks in public. At all. Zero, in fact. So, in fact, only about 10% of people in the Scandinavian countries don't wear masks. So we kind of associate, Scandinavian countries as being progressive, wealthy, kind of like the future looks like Scandinavia. And then again, they don't wear masks. But there's a caveat here. Sweden never really closed, and their death rate is really among the highest in Europe.
It's a little surprising. They did work from home for a little while, I believe. But in public, they still went sort of mask-free.
Yeah, and in fact, in 20 other countries polled, like here in the United States, between 70 and 80% of the people wear masks. And of course, that's not optional in a place like New York. Even the state of Alabama has a
some
mandatory.
Of the states, if you don't wear masks, you can't go into stores, you get fined. Different states have different regulations right now. It's crazy.
Wow, I just saw that graph with a bunch of mask wearing all over the map. But it's really surprising, Julia, that Scandinavia just doesn't do it. And in fact, there was a case of a French student showing up in the capital of Sweden, which is Stockholm. It's a lovely place. And she was like, I'm very confused. Because in Paris, they do wear masks.
Yeah, they do.
Yes. Yeah. So Scandinavia kind of stands out among the bunch, and of course, that's going to create some buzz in the Twitterati.
I think so. I've already seen some buzz in the Twitter sphere about that. Because some of us, or a lot of the politicians in the States, they're like, oh, let's copy here, let's copy there. Like, why can't we do that? Oh, we can't do that because they're different. It's
and not only that. Now with the kids going back to school, I imagine a 6-year-old wearing a mask all day. Yeah. That sounds unlikely.
That I can't imagine. Like, a 6-year-old is going to behave like a 6-year-old.
Yeah, come on. I'm 36 years old. I can barely socially distance. I can't imagine a 6-year-old doing that. But anyway, so this week we got the most devastating economic news in history, which is that the U.S. economy, get this, is 10% smaller than it was earlier this year because of the pandemic and shutdowns, etc.
Yeah, that 10% shrinkage is an all-time record for an economic crash. In fact, the worst since they're tracking the index started post-World War II, right?
Well, and it could have been worse before that.
It could have been worse, but we just didn't have data before that. We didn't officially keep track. And it's faster and sharper than anything we've seen on
And it's worse than the Great Depression and the Great Recession. We don't know if it's worse than stuff before that, but, it's pretty bad.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. And the billion-dollar question for you is, are we going to recover? I've seen, projections, we're going to recover 20%. So it's just a dip. But I've also seen, not so fast.
So the Great Recession shrunk our economy about half the size of what it shrunk this time. And as we all know, because we lived it, Julia and I were coming of age back then. Yeah. It was
fresh
tough.
out of college.
Fresh out of college during the Great Recession. It was awful. Unemployment was in the stratosphere forever. We really got hosed there. And I'm not thinking this is going to happen too fast again.
Yeah, I don't think it'll happen too fast. I think some people are being overly optimistic.
Well, evidently our stock market's very optimistic.
Yeah, it is very optimistic. I mean, I don't really understand why. Some people say, oh, it's because it's forward-looking. Of course. I mean, we're forward-looking.
I mean, folks, when this is over, the U.S. is still the best place to do business in the world.
Think so.
This is America. Our economic prospects are excellent. But, we're not there yet.
Yeah, how long is this, trough going to last? That's the most important question.
So, in the meantime, while we're struggling to make that check, because, that's great that 2 years from now everything's going to be great, but what do we do in the meantime?
Yeah, what do we do in, this year and next year? Because we have to get through this time.
Yeah, well, we got to pay rent every month. We can't,
not going away.
That's great that in 2022 America will be strong again, but right now we need help.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about blue-collar work, which is some of the most accessible jobs in America today. And here to talk about that is our first guest, Ken Rusk. He's the founder of Rusk Industries and the author of Blue Collar Cash. Love your work, secure your future, and find happiness for life. Those all sound like great things, Ken.
Hey, Ken.
Hey, good morning. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, welcome to the show. Look,
Thank you.
Many of us believe that college is the safest way to go about life, make a decent living, right? Are there better options out there?
Well, I look at it this way. If you look at just a typical supply and demand scenario, if everyone seems to be going towards the college route, then a contrarian thinker would say, well, maybe I'm going to go the other way. Because what happens in that scenario is you open up a whole lot of opportunities because the supply of the blue-collar workers is dwindling rapidly. And whenever that happens, demand goes up, and typically the money follows.
So basically, there's not enough people going into blue-collar work, right? Because more people, Julie and I grew up in a time when, you have to go to college.
Yeah, you have to.
And you have to have a white-collar job because imagine, the work your parents did, which many of our parents were blue-collar workers, is not very valued and doesn't hold a lot of social cachet.
Well, when you look at it this way, I think if you're going to college for an absolute purpose, like if you're going to operate on someone's body, or if you're going to manage someone's money, or teach, or even engineer a building, you probably should know everything that you can about those particular fields. But if you're just going there to go, there is a whole lot of other opportunity out there in the blue-collar world, especially when you think of the fact that as electricians and carpenters and plumbers begin to retire, there's not enough people that are backfilling those jobs. And once again, that creates a huge demand, a huge supply problem, and a lucrative opportunity for anyone who's willing to work with their hands.
Yeah, let's say, Ken, looking forward for 10, 20 years for our viewers, do you think blue-collar jobs are relatively more recession-proof than white-collar jobs?
Well, they've always been. If you look back 10 or 15 years, we've had a blue-collar crisis the entire time, whether the economy was good or it wasn't so good. About 25 years ago, someone decided it was a good idea to take shop class out of high school and replace all those rooms with computers, which is fine. We need to learn that as well. But it also eliminated generations of kids who would have discovered, like I said, carpentry, welding, plumbing, those kinds of things. And now they don't have the opportunity to do that, which is why we're under some of the current crises we have today.
Yeah, so how do we explain to our families, right, that, hey, maybe I don't want to go to college. Maybe I want to, be a blue-collar entrepreneur. How do we come out of the closet to our parents about wanting to be in the blue-collar economy?
Well, very quickly, if the trend continues, we're going to have some of these trades making more money than doctors. I mean, there's plenty of trades right now that are getting near six figures. Again, I speak of anything in the construction trades, anything in the service business, anything in the energy sector. A lot of these jobs are in such demand that they're getting paid pretty high wages. So the way I look at it is, it doesn't necessarily matter how you get to that place in life that you really feel comfortable, peaceful, and free, which is, I believe, everyone's goal, everyone's nirvana. What matters is that you get there. And if I can find a blue-collar job that's going to pay me, like I said, six figures, I'm probably going to take another look at that field.
Yeah, we, especially as journalists, we perk up when we hear the word six figures. That's like, six figures, we went into the wrong profession. But anyway, thank you, Ken, so much.
Yeah, it's great to have you.
Congrats on getting the book out there and spreading the message.
Got it. Have a great weekend.
Yeah, you too.
So, Julia, blue collar has often been overlooked by young generations.
Definitely.
And, if somebody's watching and looking to join the blue collar workforce, what jobs should they apply to?
Well, I think our previous guest said it very well. And I agree with him in the sense that utilities and new energy, alternative energy workers will always just be in demand because, especially now we're replacing coal with solar power, with wind power, and I can keep going. So roof installers, electricians, plumbers, air conditioning tech, so many of them, they are in demand. And some of them, like our previous guest said, again, pay six figures.
I know being from Florida and in places like Arizona and Nevada, air conditioning techs make the world go round. Right now in the stifling heat of the dog days of summer, if your air conditioning breaks...
Oh my God, you will pay everything to get that fixed ASAP.
Yeah, because hell is now if your air conditioning's not working, and there are very limited people with the skills to fix your central AC. Yeah. So, in your current conditions, you can make a good living as a blue-collar entrepreneur. Let me give you another example, Julia. During recessions, people buy less new cars. So what happens to their existing cars?
Oh my God, they break down. And they have to fix them.
Exactly. So who fixes those cars?
The auto mechanics.
Exactly. Yeah. So those are good jobs. Yeah. And let's talk about some other jobs that aren't technically blue collar, but require very little
education. The first thing that came to my mind, military, soldiers in the military, Navy. And when I say military,
great career.
Navy, all the military branches, dental and pharmacy assistants. You're not
certified
a dentist.
Nurse assistants.
Assistants, your medical assistant. Some training, but not like overwhelmingly amount of education.
You can turn it around in less than a year and be making a decent living in healthcare.
Yeah, and the last thing I want to mention, firefighters.
Yeah, we need you guys.
Unfortunately, there's always like fire
and gals, and I know it's controversial right now, but police officers.
FBI investigators and field officers. You will always have cases to work on in peacetime and wartime, so to speak. They will always be in demand.
Yeah, think outside of the box, folks, when it comes to jobs, and visit boldtv.org for more info. Yeah. So now we have our next guest.
Cool. Hey, I think our next is ready. We have the author of the book Illegal, Laz Ayala. Hello.
Hi, Julia. Good morning. Hi,
David.
David.
Good afternoon to you. Happy Friday.
So, Laz, tell us about your book. What is it about?
So the book is about immigration, focused primarily on the topic of undocumented immigration.
Can you break down the visa restrictions that the current administration have in place?
So currently we have, there's really a number of visa programs, targeting, farm workers through the H-2A visa program, or H-2B, which is attracting workers to work in reforestation, to programmers, to engineers. And so I specifically talk about the visa programs, about changing, expanding, really fixing what I consider to be the broken visa program for farm workers, which currently in the H-2A program, which is the agricultural industry's visa program for bringing in farm workers, allows, and this is only in recent, like in the last year, that has gone up to 250,000 visas that are allowed a year. We need probably at least, estimates say, at least 5 million visas to meet the demands, the labor demands of that industry.
So, Laz, break this down for us to make it really easy, because there's a lot of controversy around immigration, displacing American workers, etc. Why do we need immigrant farm workers? Just like you're explaining this to a stranger at a bus station.
Right. And first of all, let me be clear. I personally am not saying that we need more labor. The data out there, I would say, would support that argument. We have 11 million undocumented immigrants living in this country today. A large number of those workers are out in the fields. So that tells me that there is a need. And if you talk to industry experts in the agricultural industry, the farmers, ranchers, they will tell you that they have a labor shortage. and that they need more workers. I think it's understood, and it's understood in the industry that we need more workers. That said, that is something that can be easily established by a periodic analysis by the Department of Labor that assesses the needs for labor in the various industries. Okay, so they can determine, every 3 or 6 months or every year, the number of workers that are needed in these industries, and do it in a scientific way.
Wait, science and public policy? What a revolutionary thing. So all you're saying, Laz, is that basically the government has the tools to figure out where we have labor shortages and increase visas in those categories in order to not displace American workers, correct?
Correct. So the question should be, why are we not, in the case of the agricultural industry, why are we not doing this today, determining why are we not allowing for people to come here legally through a guest worker program? That's the bigger question. Why are we not doing that? Why do we on one side criminalize the worker while we don't hold the employer accountable? Why do we dehumanize undocumented immigrants, marginalize them, and attack their dignity and their humanity, while we hold the employer not accountable? And why are we not looking for solutions that allow for these workers that I think we all agree we need, at least in some of these industries? Why are we not creating a legal path for them to come here, work for a season, and return back to their homes as they want to do? They don't want to be here. People come here to work. People come here for economic opportunity. In most cases, that is the case. And they want to return to their homes. They don't want to stay here. Under the current system, what happens? Well, people risk their lives getting here. Some of them lose their lives. They are marginalized. They are exploited. They have no rights. They pay taxes. They have no vote. They have no representation. They are dehumanized, marginalized, incarcerated, locked up in cages. Their families are broken here and abroad. They're separated from their families. Why do we have this crazy, inhumane system? That's the bigger question.
Because I think it's politically difficult to change things, Laz.
Right.
It's what you're saying makes sense economically and from humanity. I think it's hard to get something like that across the finish line in Congress.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is? And I actually don't think that it's that hard to do it. I mean, the doing it, getting it done is not hard. And I have a solution that I'm proposing. It's not happening because obviously our Congress, our government is owned by big industries. So why are we not talking about this? Why are legislators not talking about, one, creating this visa or expanding this visa program? We have it. We have the H-2A, and we have the H-2B, and we have other programs that allow for this legal path for people to come here for a season. The problem, we don't have enough of them. So there's still a very high demand for undocumented labor in this country. So there's all these loopholes that need to be closed. And then the second one, the most important one, is the enforcement of the law with the employers. So we basically, on one side, we say we don't want them, we don't want the workers. On the other side, we leave the door open for them to come in so they can be exploited by these industries and by these employers. What we need to do is we need to have enforcement of E-Verify. We need to have enforcement with the employers, tough enforcement, meaning stiff fines. And if people continue to, not play by the rules, shut them down. That's what needs to happen so that we can end the exploitation and of undocumented workers that I compare today to modern day slavery. Think about it. Yeah. If you are in this country paying taxes, you have no vote, you have no rights, you are dehumanized, you are incarcerated, you're treated as a commodity. If that isn't modern day slavery, tell me what is.
Laz, I see that this is clearly a topic you're super passionate about. We're out of time, so I will leave it there, but come back some other time.
Fascinating conversation.
Yeah, fascinating conversation.
Crossing the bipartisan divide. So thank you for providing us with solutions, and congrats on your book.
Yeah.
I would like to ask your audience to visit us on illegaltheproject.org, where they can find out about how they can purchase our book, watch our documentary Illegal, which is being featured, screened today in film festivals all over the country. So illegaltheproject.org is where you can visit us and join our efforts to humanize, to change our immigration policies.
Perfect. Thank you, Laz.
Thank
Have
you,
a great
Laz.
day.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You know one thing he said that surprised me? He said that the vast majority of the immigrants coming to this country, they want to go back to their country.
It's actually
What do you
very
think about
common,
that?
especially in farm work. In fact, and one of the things about fortifying our border and not having a guest worker program, people aren't able to go back and forth. So, in fact, it's increased the population of unauthorized migrants here in the United States.
That makes a lot of sense. Probably just from my personal experience, most of the immigrant workers that I know, they're on H-1B visa. And
Well, that's a
therefore,
different
that's a
category.
totally
I
different
think he's
category.
talking
Yeah,
about farm
definitely.
work.
He's
Yeah,
talking about farm work. And just from my vantage point, it's more people would like to stay in this country than want to leave this country.
Correct.
But I hear
And
what you're
remember,
saying.
we're talking about our food supply
Yeah,
here.
food
So,
supply.
yeah, I mean, that might be important. So, anyway, our next guest is going to tell us how to protect our data. We live in a world of cyber theft. Genity founder Lowell Thompson, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having
Hey,
How are you
great to
guys?
have you. I mean, is data privacy even attainable in this age?
Yes, it is attainable. There is a lot of stuff that the ACLU and nonprofits and even what organizations like ours are trying to do to build it into what's happening next in terms of technology. It is very much attainable. It just takes time and energy. You see CCPA and GDPR and even more new data regulation coming out to help people out. It's slowly moving in the right direction, and the benefit to everyone is truly incalculable when you can actually build your lives on the internet in ways that is safe and secure. And in a lot of ways, the pandemic we'd be much better able to fight it if we had the data privacy that we need. At the beginning of the year, the ACLU was working with people who were doing research to see location data, so how close you are to people. And the problem was people didn't want to share that information because they thought they would be stigmatized if they were doing something wrong. You can imagine a bunch of people who don't want to share that type of information for one reason or another. But they worked out a way to anonymize the information so that all you saw was the distance. And so people could see through empirical means that you, by staying 6 feet across it, that you were statistically less likely to contract it and all these other things. But it is very much attainable nowadays. It's really just, do we have the will for it? And the suffering and everything that people are going through right now really are leading, politicians and nonprofits and even businesses to get into making that change.
Okay, so data breaches happen all the time. Even the largest companies and governments around the globe get breached all the time. If they can't stay secure, who can?
They don't stay secure because they don't have the right technology in place and the right permission system and the right privacy practices to take care of people. In a lot of, almost all of the data breaches you can think of were like the security was barely even in existence. Like they really were minimal level things. It is putting the right security practices in place and following them and having platforms out there that reinforce those things on a DNA level. If we had like what we're building out there, a lot of that would go away. It is very much doable. You just have to make sure that the right conditions are there for the incentives. So like a lot of the new data privacy legislation is about incentivizing businesses to do the right thing. So if they don't store the information right and it gets data breached, they have fines and all these other things. So then they start thinking, oh, I'm gonna get hit with this. It's not just something that's exported onto our end user, which I can hopefully correct. Granted, like it is on average, like $8 to $10 million in damages. It is actually very, very attainable in terms of building how you store information in a much more secure and effective way. Like it's like there's not a very high bar. Like people just aren't really doing the right things, and that's why it's so prevalent.
From what you just said, I hear, one, it's technically feasible.
Yes.
Two, okay, these large companies and government around the world, they're just don't have enough willpower to do it, which is really sad. Then what can we, the average folks, do in our daily lives to help push things in that direction?
And in a lot of ways, you vote with your dollars. So when you if you're on a platform that doesn't respect your privacy, doesn't let you see what you're doing, consider going to one that does. There are organizations out there that take it very, very seriously. You can contact your local senators and let them know that you care about these things, saying, hey, I want this stuff in my state so I can get taken care of and know that my family, my kids' information, like all that stuff is taken care of. There's a lot of things people can do, but the best thing they can do is just send an email, vote with their dollar. And if we do, the great thing is this isn't just like some unattainable high shelf thing that we can't get to. If we all work fairly hard for the next 5 to 10 years and we build the right systems in place, we really don't have to think about it again. We can just almost take it for granted, like how lead isn't in paint anymore. A small group of people work together to get lead out of paint, lead out of our carburetors and stuff like that. And it just takes a little bit of effort. If you want to be able to build your life, build your business, not have, wake up one day, look at your bank account and see it zeroed out for yourself and for your loved ones, then, support businesses that actually do care about that. If you hear about a politician running who is for data privacy, consider giving them your vote and letting people know about how much you care about that. And at the very least, just message your local government and say, hey, I care about these things. I really like to have something like this in place. And the ACLU and other organizations are there working with politicians on building their own data legislation out there. So the best thing is just to make sure you're being heard. Because
I'm going to ask you this. Theoretically, we can all vote with our dollars. The problem in this case is sometimes we don't know which company is taking what steps already. And more often than not, we hear about these data breaches years afterward. Right? We don't hear it when it's happening. We don't know anything. We're left in the dark.
Well,
go ahead.
Sorry, we're out of time, Lowell. I'm getting the thing. But thank you for being a guest. We appreciate it. Yeah. So, anyway.
Yeah, wow. I mean, I'm always, because you and I talked about this many times, right? It's this happened. And then, remember which year was that, but when the Target thing came out and we're like, oh my God, how come nobody knew about it?
I had to cancel my credit card over
So it was like a big mess for everybody, for a lot of our viewers too. And I was like, well, we can't really prepare for things like this if we're all left in the dark. We as, individuals, we would never want something like this to happen, but it's not within our control.
No, it isn't.
Yeah.
It's really out of our control, and it's really hard to figure out what the hell is going on, especially since they cut off your credit card and they won't even tell you who was responsible for the breach. Yeah. You hear about it from the news, which I think is wildly irresponsible.
Yeah, it's wildly irresponsible. I agree with that. But I mean, I wish, as he said, there are more incentives for lawmakers to get on this. The other thing, I guess, is I'm okay with calling my congressmen, congresswomen, senators, but I don't know if they check email. They're not on Instagram. Like the line of communication is not exactly established.
Yeah, but anyway, so coming up next, we have a friend of mine, Kunal Sood. He's the founder of X Fellows and We the Planet. How you doing, Kunal?
Thanks for having me. How are you?
Hey, Kunal. Happy Friday to you. Look, right now, we're having a hard time getting people to wear masks for the greater good, right? And in some states, I mean, New York is doing okay, but in some states where the coronavirus is still ramping, it's just difficult to get everybody come together. How do you get everybody to come together then?
How do I get everyone to come together? It's a good question.
Kunal, are you running for Congress here? You can't answer the question. It's a good question. We're not here to talk about the value of the question.
Okay, let me tell you what's so interesting. Just this morning, I spoke to a friend of mine who actually launched TEDx. TEDx as in TEDx, the platform Laura Stein, and we came up with an idea. I've had this idea for a while. Of course, from We the Planet, I wanted to start something called We the Future. And We the Future would be about all of us coming together as one, right? And it's so funny that you're asking me this, because this is exactly what we were kind of like struggling with, is how do we come together without fear or favor? How do we make the impossible possible? And how do we get people to feel like they need to wear masks, even though you look like crap and you look like you're becoming a hybrid of a thug and someone that's sick.
A surgeon / bank robber, right?
I think that's something that's very important, is that we start to do things because we can and not because we have to. And take that mindset. See, most of the things I believe that need to happen here and now are about mindset. So if you create a mindset where you can actually wear a mask because you're going to protect your loved one, that's important. And I'm speaking directly to the millennials here because, yes, there are people that have a fearless immunity system, right? The youngsters. You'll probably feel like it was a really bad cold or a near-death experience, but you'll get back on your feet. But you might not have that same fate with someone you love, like your grandmom or your granddad or your mother and father. So I would say keeping that at the front and center of your life's journey is to know that you have to serve something that's larger than yourself. And I would say that's why you should wear a mask.
Look, Kunal, the issue with a lot of people not wearing a mask, it's not really that they can't. I mean, it's easy to put it on, physically, but they think it's a political statement, right? So in their mind, in these people's mind, they are doing something larger than themselves already. Hey, I am upholding the Constitution, right? How do you change that mindset?
It's a good question.
What is up with this good question, Kunal? You've been in the United Nations crowd too long. You need to tell us, how, even if someone's right, we're talking about collective sacrifice here, right? Which we have a problem doing, right? What is the problem with everyone's collective sacrifice to do the right thing?
I actually don't think the ones who are not wearing masks aren't doing the right thing. I think they're just choosing to believe that they're doing what they think is right.
Of course.
So God bless them, right? And the truth is there are two ways through this. Even I have a conundrum. I'm like, should we burn through the virus or should we protect from the virus?
Well, we all think that, Kunal. We just don't say that out loud, right? Like, is New York hiding and keeping the city closed and causing 20% unemployment the right way? Or is Texas, let it burn the right way? And we don't know the answer to that question.
And, let me share New York, for example. That's the perfect example of a question that you just raised. Is in the beginning, I thought Cuomo wasn't doing the best job, but I think he came up on top at the end because he didn't do what California did. And in the beginning, I was like, why haven't we had a massive lockdown, right? Like, why aren't we sheltering in place? But now looking back, Cuomo did enough to kind of push us through the barrier where now we're actually in a place where we've come to curving the actual spike. Now, will that stay? God knows. But I feel like there's this conundrum of I would wear a mask because it's the right thing to do to protect the ones I love. I wouldn't use politics to inform that decision, and I wouldn't make it about me doing something that I believe is larger than myself. I'm going to use science and what the doctors have said to protect the ones I love.
Yeah, but that's controversial.
Yeah, that's also controversial.
Yeah. We had a whole segment dedicated to, that doctor who came out this week that we've all heard about at this point, but we'll leave that for another day. Kunal, we're out of time, but how do we learn more about you?
Okay, well, there are two ways to learn about me. One is to Google Kunal Sood.
You got the spelling right there, folks.
Yeah, here. It's on the screen.
And the second way is to go to www.wetheplanet.io and be part of the family. Come to our next summit. David, I'd love for you to maybe moderate or even share at the next summit that we do. And really, the dream of We the Planet is to unite the youth and the elders to make the impossible possible. And I think you guys are doing this by sharing visions and contrasted ideas. And I didn't know I was going to talk about masks, but more power to people that wear masks. And, those that don't, God bless you. Maybe you're just living your dharma and, that's the right thing to do too. I really support both. I'm one of supporting both sides of the coin.
Oh, Kunal, the politician ever, the future president of India, Kunal Sood. Thank you so much for being here today.
President's a safer position, though. Thanks, David.
Thank you. Hey, have a good weekend.
See you guys.
Well, I mean, I am, glad that New York is doing well. Like, I still wear a mask.
But are we doing well, Julia? I hate to play
we
devil's
could
advocate.
We could always do better.
20% unemployment
we could
is not
always do better.
I mean, the economy is completely crashed
I
here.
think the economy is shit. And
unemployment has started trending down in Florida, although their death rate's going up.
What is it? What is it in Florida right now?
It depends on the county.
Oh, okay,
My county's very high.
Okay.
Yeah, you're talking because it's right next to Disney World.
Yeah, tourism.
It's in excess of 30%.
Oh, wow.
But the economy was a lot stronger here to begin with. It's important to remember that.
Yeah.
So anyway, our last guest, speaking of money, he's a poker player.
Yeah, professional poker player. And he's also the author of Die with Zero, Getting All You Can from Your Money and Your Life. Bill Perkins. Hey, Bill.
Hi.
Hey.
How are you guys doing?
Look, theoretically, I know I have to live life to the max. I have to enjoy everything.
I mean, we live in New York City. We understand.
We understand that. But how do you make sure you don't spend everything too soon?
Yeah, how do I know I'm not going to have it? How am I going to make it to 95 at this point?
Yeah, well, I mean, one, you got to stay healthy to make it to 95. But also, to not outlive your money, you need to calculate, kind of have an idea when you think you're going to pass, right? You'll put a buffer on that. And you got to save for your survival number. And that's the number that you save up to when you're no longer earning or you no longer have income to last you for the rest of your days. And that can include Social Security or pensions or anything associated with that. And once we solve for that minimal survival number, then we're solving for fun, right? We're solving for when should we have the experiences we want to have.
Yeah,
you know?
See, the thing is, like when we look at the survival numbers and all that, those are statistics. It applies to the general population, but
we're
you
a statistic.
I'm
a person.
You don't know if that thing will be true on you, an individual person. So how do you make sure it doesn't happen to you?
Well, first of all, there's actuarial tables out there, right, that you can put in your health, your weight. You can constantly check up on it. And this is an iterative process. This isn't something you say, oh, well, I'm going to live to 86 when I'm 20. This is something that you're constantly checking up on and solving for, so that you don't get into a scenario with assumptions from when you're 20, when you're in your 60s. But each individual person has their own health decline curve, their own bone density curve, the ways their body is going to deteriorate in different ways.
Oh, we're all dying, Bill. Stop reminding me. So, Bill,
here's the good news. Here's the good news. Because you know this, right, and because you know that your body deteriorates, you now know that when you look at your life in certain increments, I'll call them 5-year increments, you can now think about what experiences you want to have in each of those years. And as you get older, you'll spend less money. And that part of that is because there are less experiences that you will either enjoy, want to do, or can do.
What, so we all turn into Ernest Hemingway eventually in a cabin in Idaho, not doing much?
I wouldn't say all of us. I mean, each person has their own individual path. But what we want to do is have a mental model of how to think about the total arc of our life and the experiences we want to have and when we want to have them. And we want to basically use all our resources, all our money, our health, our time, right? At various periods in our life, we have varying degrees of our health, money, and time. And we want to use all those resources to get the maximum amount of experiences that we can.
Okay, so Bill, we're running out of time, but I want to hear more about you. Poker player, kind of, sexy and connected to this, gambling and, figuring out how much money I'm going to spend and how long I'm going to live. How did that infuse, your experience being a poker player?
Well, poker is only sexy when you're winning. No, I'm just kidding.
True.
Then I look really good with a big stack of chips on the table. But, there's a lot of risk reward calculations when you're playing poker. You're playing expected outcome. There's a lot of math and calculations and quantification of how you're going to play the game and how you win in the long run. And I take those principles from poker and I apply them to the book Die with Zero and the methodology that I discuss in the book, so that you can have a model to use that to get the maximum out of your life.
Wow, that's pretty good. You are media trained, Bill.
Yeah.
So, Bill, you told us you're in Italy. Are you living your best life right now? You're in a much more beautiful place than we are.
I would love to be in Italy right now.
I'm in Italy. The pizza's good. I don't know. I'm eating like it was my best life, but my body's like, this is not best for you. Health is very important on not only how long you're going to live, but how you're going to enjoy those activities while you're living. So I might be doing a little damage on the health side because the food's so good here, but I'm really enjoying the moments here.
Well, Bill Perkins, live from Capri, Italy, death by pizza and wine. Thank you so much for making time for us.
Thank you for having me. It's
Have
been
a
great.
good one. Enjoy your place.
Enjoy
I
it.
really want to be there right now.
Oh my gosh, I would love to be in Italy. So
I do want to pick your brain on one thing. I think one way that we can splurge a little bit but still build a cushion is to invest in real estate.
yeah, of course.
Do you have any suggestions for some of our viewers who might be thinking about that?
Okay, so real estate's a great way to build wealth because it's a tangible asset. Remember, you can touch it. When you buy stocks and bonds,
Like, what
you're
are
buying
they?
an idea. Remember, companies go broke or cease to exist, but a house will always maintain some form of value, Julia.
Yeah. And one thing, the perk for me personally is I can live there too. I
Yeah,
could
that's a
live
big-
there too while you just park your money there and you can flip it. I mean, flip may not be the best approach, but you can do it. You have a lot of options to go with it.
Yeah, and real estate historically keeps up with inflation and creates a solid return, and it's really a stable investment, right?
Yeah, yeah.
You might not get as much as you would have investing in a certain stock or starting a new business, but it's nice.
It's stable. It's stable. And one thing I do want to point out is home construction usually cannot keep up with population growth. And we all know it's difficult to get through the zoning laws and the cost of construction is high, right? So all the signs point to a higher home prices over time.
Yeah, no, and especially in hot areas like San Francisco
Yeah.
and New York. And remember, hot areas change over time. Today,
Yeah.
the hot area is New York, but the next hot
Yeah,
area might be
it could be-
Orlando or
yeah,
Phoenix, or we
Missouri,
don't know.
yeah.
Exactly. So, and of course, if you don't live in the property, the rental market is blossoming because many people can't afford to buy a
Yeah.
house, so they become perpetual renters.
Yeah.
And if you own a home, it's a great way to
Yeah,
create
if you're on the
automatic
other
money.
side, it's great that you can collect rent and keep that going so you enjoy that freedom while you own the property that is under your
And
name.
lastly, when you die,
Yeah.
it's still there.
You can pass it on if you have kids. If you have kids. If
Hey,
you
but
don't have
maybe-
kids, you can donate to a charity.
Exactly. You can donate to the church, to a nice niece,
Yeah.
whatever you'd like. So real estate becomes a very sustainable asset for you.
One of your favorites. I
Oh,
think. Yeah.
my favorite. I own tons of real estate. And that's the end of our show. Thank you all for watching.
Yeah, follow Bolt TV on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Facebook. We're also on Amazon Fire TV and Roku, and subscribe to our YouTube channel.
See you next week.
Bye.